So, tell me something terrible. Rally the troops.
Aren't you glad we stopped playing Harry Potter now?
I have prideful ambitions of finishing that game after this podcast.
All right.
We're going to be like, it's like 12:45, and I'm like, yeah, we can finish a board game. We're not dead yet. We're in our 30s, damn it. We can do this.
I'm still young.
I've seen 1 a.m. like twice in the last 5 years. Maybe tonight's one of those nights.
Huzzah.
Yeah, and then I'll like not be able to sleep in past 8 o'clock tomorrow and hate it.
Yep, and we're hanging out with friends.
Yep. Also, yes. I listened to our patron episode. We never introduced ourselves, which is fine because our patrons definitely know us.
I hope so.
But I listened to it and I was like, we finally did it. We finally skipped right over that.
Yep.
So anyway, we should do that.
I don't know if there's ever been an episode where
we should do that now.
Skip it?
No.
Oh, introduce ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Scott.
And you're listening to Tell Me Something Terrible.
Yeah, you are.
Yep.
And in the Patreon episodes, we do it backwards, so that's probably why I forgot to.
Yes.
Because I have to start it because the whole episode's backwards. I'm not a pro. That's only like what? The 15th bonus episode we've done now?
And I've got 102 under my belt.
You do? Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, we've introduced ourselves 103 times now.
Look at us go.
And this is 103, right? Mm-hmm. Cool.
And I accidentally made a long episode, so.
Well, that'll happen sometimes.
Yeah, well, it started out as one single topic, and then I was like, wow, this page that I've written is not enough. So let's broaden this subject to be a little more inclusive, shall we? And then it wound up 5 pages long. So let's get started.
Well, okay.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Yep. I did a medium dive here.
We're in this for the long haul.
Yep.
This is going to be the first episode of August. It deserves to be a long one.
Sure. We're going to have a caveat up front here. This is just history. Please do not try anything mentioned in this episode at home, out of desperation.
I don't know where this is going.
Yeah, consult doctors. Find a friend who can help you camp.
What?
No, in a state where you camp, where camping is allowed. My friends can come here and camp.
Okay.
Don't know what that was a euphemism for? Like literally 6 weeks ago?
Yeah, no, I do. I just am surprised that that's the topic you chose.
It's contraception.
Okay.
In general.
Uh-huh.
Because it started out as it started out as this. So we have the nightcap, the wetsuit, the jimmy, the French letter, the Reading note anglaise, the English raincoat, a rubber, the condom.
Okay.
That was the intentional subject of this.
Okay.
I didn't get that much.
So you broadened it?
So I broadened it.
So your whole topic about something terrible was going to be condoms?
The history of condoms.
Okay.
Yep. So now we're going to do the history of
personally,
birth control in
I
general.
do hate them, so I understand how that would classify as something terrible.
So
I would rather wear a mullet than one. Thankfully. For a year, which one would you rather put up with? At this point in our relationship, which one would you rather I quote unquote wear for a year? See? It's a tough decision.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. One everybody sees, but one's really, really going to affect you.
I guess this feels like a morality question of selfishness versus selflessness, you know?
I suppose.
I feel like I'd have to take one for the team just so I didn't have to have your coworkers suffer. You have to suffer from having to be teased for a mullet, and I wouldn't have to be seen with you out in public with a mullet. How embarrassing.
Okay.
I know how much my mother hated my dad wearing a mullet up until the early 2000s. So I kind of have I'd just take one for the team and just suffer. There are other.
We would both be suffering with one. I won't give a shit about the mullet.
Oh man, this is quite a moral conundrum.
Right? All right.
Ask your friends, guys. This is going to be a great discussion to have with your other couple friends.
I would make it a Twitter poll, but we'd get one vote, and that's just embarrassing.
So, the earliest depiction of the use of a condom is recorded in a cave of on the wall of an old cave in France, dated 12,000 to 15,000 years ago.
Okay.
The first documented use of a very rudimentary condom can be traced back to King Minos of Crete, dating back roughly 3000 BCE, which we've learned is not before Christ.
No. It's blazing Cheetos.
So it was said that he had serpents and scorpions in his semen.
What?
Yeah. His previous mistress having died after sex. So he probably had an STD that would kill you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like the OG Sif.
Yeah. So in order to protect his wife and other lovers and himself, a bladder of goat was introduced into his partner's vagines, which in turn protected her from whatever disease the king had. And so the ancient Egyptians were the first to use sheaths for protection.
Okay.
And then the first actual condom specimen was found. It was dug out of the cesspits belonging to Dudley Castle near Birmingham, England. So these specimens were found in the 1980s. They were 5 scraps of animal membrane resembling thin leather. They were identified as condoms made from either pig or sheep's intestine, dating between 1642 and 1647. And these condoms were meant to be reused because the process of making them was arduous.
Okay.
So a recipe to create condoms dating back to the mid-19th century is as follows.
The recipe?
The recipe.
Okay.
The instructions.
Yeah, recipe makes it sound edible.
It was animal intestines.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's organic matter.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to take the caseum of the sheep.
Can we do this like a Food Network video? Like we'll make a short of it.
Yes,
like we've been doing these drink recipes.
Yes.
We're gonna do a condom recipe.
Yes,
yeah.
from a shot from above.
Yeah.
You know, very.
Let's see if we have. Let's see how many
style.
ingredients we have in the pantry.
So you need to take the caseum of a sheep.
I don't have one of those.
The casing of a,
Yeah, you can buy that though. That's what you make sausage with. Not of sheep, but we can replace it, like pork. What?
Is it really made out of animal, like, intestines?
I assumed it was. Is it not?
I have no idea.
Isn't pork casing?
I don't want you to Google it because I don't actually want to know. Let's leave that one.
What else would it be?
I don't.
It's not plastic.
I mean, this is America. It really could be some sort of weird plastic.
No. They've been making bratwurst and frankfurters in Europe for longer than we've been making shitty American hot dogs. Yeah, I said it.
I'm having an existential crisis over here.
You're right. You're like, I just became vegan.
Yep. So they would take the caseum of the sheep, they would soak it first in water, turn it on both sides, and then repeat the operation in a weak lye solution of soda.
Okay.
Which must be changed every 4 or 5 hours for 4 or 5 successive times.
Okay.
And then...
So we're talking a full day.
Yeah. So then you remove the mucous membrane with the nail.
With the nail?
With a nail.
Oh, like a fingernail or a hammer and nail?
I don't. It just said with a nail.
Okay.
Sulfur, wash... then you'd put it in sulfur, and then you would wash it in clean water, and then in soap and water.
And then you have tie-dye.
And then you rinse. And then you inflate and dry.
Inflate?
Yeah, like into
into a cylinder. Okay.
Case. Yep. And
can you imagine having that job? What do? I inflate condoms so they can dry.
These don't even have the name condom yet. Oh shoot! I didn't put down the etymology. Whatever.
Okay.
It was long enough.
No.
It was. They think it might be Latin.
Condom.
Like condus. But there's also a doctor whose last name was Condum, like Cundum, and he started prescribing them, and so they think it also could have came from him.
That's probably likely.
Yeah. So
his last name was probably Latin. It all comes together.
Exactly. So next, it was cut to the required length and attached a piece of ribbon to the open end.
Can you imagine how many times those prescriptions were forged?
Yeah.
They're like, you're prescribed for a 4-inch condom. Whoa. Doctor, get your measuring tape back out.
Well, I think
I need the Magnum sheepskin.
Pretty sure in the 1600s, people might not have given that much of a shit.
You don't think?
Oh, yeah, no. I say that out loud.
There's probably complexes
right. Yeah,
going
it's got to
back.
come from somewhere. The Oedipus complex.
Have you
Napoleon
seen how
complex.
much aesthetic has always, like, that's the one thing, like, cave drawings and, like,
that's the one thing that's
Egyptian temples, it's all about aesthetic. I mean, come on now. They're not drawing, like, That's always had an importance.
Well, in all paintings and stuff like that, when they find like...
Have you seen a fertility statue?
Yeah. Well, and even like paintings were still like ancient time Photoshop. You know, they didn't draw them true to life.
Yeah.
There's like whole kings that were missing noses from syphilis, and they would just draw normal noses on them.
Yeah.
Anyway, they attached a piece of ribbon to the open end.
And no one knows any better.
And these condoms originally were used to prevent infection, and later on the benefit was preventing pregnancy.
Yep.
So condoms in ancient Rome were made of linen, or it is believed that they also made the condoms out of muscles of dead combatants, but this theory doesn't have a lot of physical evidence to support it.
Muscles of dead combatants. Okay.
Yeah, you know, like...
Yeah, I understand.
Dead from war.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I understood. I was just processing.
Okay. So when condoms were few and far between, there were other methods of disease and pregnancy prevention.
Push and pray. Did I get that right?
Pull-out game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
No, it's the Dane Cook thing. You just push it past all the important stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the joke.
So the oldest form of pregnancy prevention is the pull-out game. Or, the more eloquently put, either the Coitus Interruptus.
Ooh, I like that.
It's Latin. Mm-hmm. Yep. When ejaculation happens outside of the body.
I know what my first tattoo's going to be now.
Right, a tramp stamp right above your ass crack.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Instead of insert coin here, it's going to say Coitus Interruptus.
Yep.
So this is when ejaculation happens outside of the body.
Yep.
Or Coitus Reservatus, which is...
Where does that go?
It doesn't. It's withdrawal without ejaculation at all.
That sounds worse. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this specific method was popular in several ancient cultures.
How many kids were named Coitus Interruptus or whatever you said?
These are our twins, Coitus and Revertus.
Yeah.
And their two younger siblings,
Yep.
Coitus number 2 and Interruptus.
Yep.
So the Coitus Revertus was popular in several ancient cultures for various reasons. In ancient China and India, Coitus Reservatus was encouraged because a man coming would result in his loss of yang, and that it diminished his vigor.
Okay.
Yep.
We got sleepy.
Mm-hmm. Did you come?
No, he got sleepy.
He got sleepy.
Yeah.
Oh, I was about to say, sir, do we need to chat? What were you doing when I wasn't looking?
We're across the 3-foot table, so you...
It's COVID style. So if he was having sex with his female partner, he would receive some of her yin without sacrificing his yang. So they were like, you can't come, you're going to diminish yourself.
Okay.
And then sex that ended in pleasure, aka ejaculation, was thought by early Christians to be sinful because God forbid you seek pleasure. Like he literally was like, no, you can't have fun.
I assume they were big proponents for recreation.
Yeah.
Not recreation. I get that part.
Yep. But a lot of times, I think this is where like children were born of sin came from, because they thought no matter what, coming was sinning because you weren't supposed to seek that type of pleasure.
That's crazy talk.
Mm-hmm. And so your kids would be born out of sin.
Huh.
Because you
I assume that was just out of wedlock or whatever.
No, you absolutely no, because that's what the Catholics believe. You're born with sin. So I think maybe that's where it came from. Anyway, Christians said no. So it was a man's duty to have vaginal intercourse with his wife in order to protect her physical health and prevent her from suffering from hysterics.
Huh. It's kind of a double-edged sword you're rocking.
Yep. So in the book of Genesis, a man named Onan faced God's wrath when he spilled his seed on the ground. So more devout Jews and Christians considered it a sin to ejaculate without the chance of reproduction. So that's where that procreation, not recreation thing stems from. So the solution to this problem was Coitus Reservatus.
Just don't.
Just don't.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't get to come. You can have sex with your wife because she has to, otherwise she's going to get hysterics.
Yeah.
But you were not allowed to enjoy it. So you weren't allowed to come. So you would just have vaginal sex.
This is a really good podcast to listen to in your car with the windows down at a stoplight.
Yes.
When you have said the word come 48 times and we're about 17 minutes into this podcast.
Great, guys.
Yep.
So you Yeah, you had to have sex with your wife, but you weren't allowed to do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the solution to not being...
this is why there were so many goddamn wars in that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's
the conflicts were on the rise.
The blue balls were serious.
Everyone was just angry.
Yes. So, if you did accidentally happen to come inside of someone, there were other options. First was being spermicidal concoctions as far back as 1850 BCE.
Okay.
Before blazing Cheetos.
Yep.
In ancient Egypt, recipes for spermicides have been found buried with the dead to prevent unwanted pregnancies in the afterlife.
Did said spermicides cause the dead?
No, they were there, because they get buried with like.
I just assumed it was like instant toxic shock syndrome. Like whatever they shot inside of them, they just died. And they're like, well, leave the recipe just so people know.
So speaking of which, the recipes included honey, sodium carbonate.
Sorry, that is the worst joke.
So it was honey, sodium carbonate, and crocodile dung.
Oh, I was gonna say we have those two ingredients. Yeah. If we were gonna make a horrible recipe, I'm all out of crocodile shit.
Damn it.
We live in down, if we were in Florida, or where's crocodiles? That's not, gators are in Florida.
I'm honestly,
whatever.
I'm so
Crocodile Dundee, Australia.
Sure.
Anyway, if we had access to crocodile tears, shit, whatever.
We might be able to order some. You can order so many things nowadays.
I am not getting on a list for that.
Anything else I've had to research for this podcast?
Yes.
Fine. That, absolutely not.
No.
I have standards. I'm drawing a line.
Yeah. I have morals.
So 300 years later, by 1550 BCE, Egyptian women had advanced to using cotton lint tampons soaked in fermented acai juice.
Oh, like the bowls?
Mm-hmm.
Acai?
Oh, no, it's acacia juice. Okay. I don't know. It's a type of berry, I'm assuming.
Okay.
So, in the very first century CE, which is not after Christ, these things...
CE, yeah. Is that okay?
Or it'd be it was
AD.
AD, yeah, after death. It's not after death.
No.
So, but in the first century, pessaries, which are vaginal suppositories made of peppermint or sicklewort mixed with honey, was used.
Okay.
In India, women used...
They were convinced it had to do with honey. Like, let's try that on everything.
Yes.
Yep.
In India, women used rock salt soaked in oil or honey, ghee, or pulsha tree seeds.
No idea.
Okay.
I know what ghee is.
Yes. You use ghee. We have a big tub of it in our refrigerator.
Clarified butter.
Yep. And by
makes the best scrambled eggs.
Does it?
Oh, fuck yeah. It is a delicious way to make scrambled eggs.
So by the 500s, I bet you that's not something you'd think you'd learn while listening to a terrible podcast about the history of contraceptives. To be like, I learned the best way to make scrambled breakfast eggs.
Yes. Just put ghee in the pan first.
While also learning about spermicide, ancient spermicide.
Yeah, I wouldn't use it for that. Like we said, we're not doctors.
No.
Nope.
So by the 500s, the Greeks were smearing their cervixes with mixtures of...
Sorry, it's a lovely visual you made there.
It's a good schmear.
Yeah, a nice cervix schmear.
And this schmear was made of myrtle, lead...
What's myrtle?
It's a plant. We have myrtle, I think, in the yard. It's a plant.
Okay.
Lead, alum...
You just said it all nonchalant like I was supposed to know what the fuck myrtle was. It's a beach. And it's an old lady's name?
Yes, it is. That's actually what... that's what it is. They go over to Myrtle's house and she shaves off some skin for him. And she's like, there you go, honey, bye.
I'm going to guess this one didn't work, and that's where Fertile Myrtle came from. Uh-oh.
Oh, no. Epiphanies. So, her cervix was smeared with myrtle, lead, alum, or white vinegar mixed into cedar resin.
Okay.
So it's actually more
you got some good aromatics going here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was...
These were just douches. They just were made to make everything smell better.
Just wait.
Okay, good. To mask the smell of your funk. Keep going.
The douches.
Oh, good.
So it was also medically suggested that the male partner coat their peen with alum, pomegranate, gallnut, or vinegar.
If I rub pomegranate all over my anything, you're not going to want to come near it. It's going to look like I have a fucking zombie dick.
Yeah, and it's going to be sticky, your favorite.
Oh, everyone loves sticky. That's gross. Anyway.
So Aristotle threw in his 2 cents, suggesting women line the vagina with cedar oil.
lube.
Yep. This cedar oil also had an ointment with lead or frankincense infused with olive oil.
Hey, those heavy metals do work as a good contraceptive.
Yeah,
Some side effects may apply.
So in the 10th century and 11th century, Middle Eastern women would use honey.
Always.
Water.
Okay.
And elephant dung.
Oh, what? All right. A lot of strange decisions there.
Yeah. So in London from 1885 to 1960... 1960.
Are we going to start using raccoon shit?
No.
Okay, good.
Cocoa butter pessaries were being used. And lastly, in the late 1970s, women in England used vitamin C tablets inserted into the vagine, but this would leave some women with severely chemically burned cervixes.
At least they wouldn't have a cold down there.
That's true.
Group B strep does happen. I mean, that's like big cause of UTIs. So.
Good to know. And
I
vitamin C will take care of that?
don't think inserting vitamin C will help, but I'm not a doctor.
No. So if specimens...
I would suggest antibiotics, but, crazy talk.
So if spermicides and pessaries didn't work, you could always manually remove the sperm as an emergency contraceptive solution.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm curious to hear how this, the methodology by which they do this.
So it was suggested that you could remove
Shop
sperm.
vacs weren't invented yet, and that is a horrible visual anyway.
So it was suggested that you could remove sperm from the uterus to prevent fertilization. So ancient Hebrew women were told to just forcefully contract the vaginal wall to expel out any semen.
Okay.
So this could be done by using...
Okay. No, I'm going to just not bury a hole I can't get out of. You keep going. That's a bad vagina joke right there too,
yep.
right? Okay, good.
Just hitting the nail with the hammer.
Yep, we don't know. It might be a fingernail.
So it could be done by using a finger to direct urine into the vagine to flush out spermies.
A little detour. Okay.
So a woman could jostle it out of herself by getting up abruptly afterwards.
Whoa, I gotta get up.
And then sneezing and then blowing her nose several times.
What?
And then shouting loudly and jump backwards several times.
Is this how why the trampoline was actually invented? We find out. Oh, that's to get all shake really it all out of me. Yeah. Yes, that's why it's waterproof. It's terrible.
That's so bad. So you couldn't expel the semen. If you couldn't expel the semen yourself, you could rely on the
ask a friend.
Yeah, you would rely on the assistance of something to absorb the semen.
Okay.
So women
the quicker picker upper.
Yep.
Bounty.
So women used to use vegetable seed pods in South Africa as sponges.
Okay.
Seaweed moss or bamboo was used in Japan and China to help absorb anything.
Yep.
So the oldest reference to a sponge
Why not just use rice? That's what we put our phones in when we drop it in water.
That's a good idea.
Just saying.
I mean, but you're not supposed to give like raw rice to birds because they might explode, right? Like that's the thing. That's why they banned it for
So you think
weddings.
your vagina's going to explode
if you
put raw
if you put
rice
something that could get absorbed by there's a lot of liquid in there.
You
don't know what's going to happen.
That's not how any of this works.
And you just might wind up
It's not a pressurized container. You don't put it in and seal it off.
So anyway.
You want it to come back out.
Yes. So the oldest reference to the use of a sponge was mentioned in the Talmud, which is the OG Jewish text.
Okay.
So God, a long ass time ago, told the Jews it was fine to use contraceptives in this form of like a sperm absorbing sponge.
Okay.
I'm just going to leave that information there for anybody listening to chew on.
Right.
Or maybe have as a fun fact to take to Thanksgiving dinner when you're together with your crazy family.
Right. Yep. Just have that to rely on.
Yep. So where it was suggested that a sponge be soaked in vinegar to either soak up the semen or induce a miscarriage.
Okay.
What's another name for an induced miscarriage?
I think it rhymes with schmushmortion.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not going to use this part in the TikTok, so I could say it. But
yes. So
this one also, by the way, is going to be a very hard podcast episode to make TikToks that don't get like flagged for shit.
Yeah. So
I might have to put bleeps in.
Yeah, we are.
I haven't done that yet.
So the 17th century, French women used a sponge soaked in brandy to weaken the sperm.
Okay.
And as late as...
Like, everything that... I feel like it's just perfume at this point.
Yes. So as late as the early 20th century, it was suggested in the UK to use sponges soaked in olive oil. So this is like the 1900s.
All right.
Eventually, the contraceptive sponge hit the market in the U.S. in 1983, but it fell out of fashion in 1995 once
this is where those beauty blenders came from.
No.
They're the right size, shape. What?
You might be right.
I'm just saying, those sponges hit the market and they're like, I got an extra one. Oh my God, it works so good on my makeup.
So they fell out of fashion in 1995 once it was harder to stick. 1995.
Of like 25 years ago? Whatever.
30 years ago, but yeah. Uh-huh.
These sponges fell out of fashion?
The sponge was back in the market in 2005.
What? Okay.
I don't know what's in them now.
Is it that effective?
They're obviously different. No, there's no way. It's obviously made of some different type of anything. I'm sure there's a modern day spermicide in it, like, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last I knew, we were in like ancient Europe and
every single
ancient times.
Thing that I'm going to tell, every paragraph that I told you is like a little mini written backstory to that type of contraceptive. So the next one we're going to is if none of those sponges worked, you could also flush out the uterus by inducing the menstrual cycle. So every single thing that I'm telling you that's an alternative to condoms, I'm going to give you a little brief history on it.
Okay. So now we're getting into the pill, I feel like. Hormone manipulation?
Close.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyway,
not quite.
I'll try to follow the trains here.
Okay. There's lots of them. Because there are a bunch of little mini stories inside. So you could also flush out the uterus by inducing the menstrual cycle. This was suggested in early as 300 BCE in Greece by Hippocrates. Jesus. Hippocrates. I went to college.
That's going to be my Twitch handle.
Hippocrates.
Yeah.
And just
a little hippo symbol. Yeah. And he's going to be chomping on a crate.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Hippocrates, he had stolen recipes of herbs from medicine women whose knowledge was already thousands of years old regarding inducing the menstrual cycle.
He cited his sources.
I'm sure. Gave them all of the glory and responsibility.
You just got to wait till the last 5 minutes, and then we'll do sources.
Yep.
Just like he did.
So these were published again by a future pope in 1276.
A future pope?
Okay. A pope, yes.
I didn't realize there was popes.
I just really want to drive home the fact that this shit was founded and okayed by every religious text. A future pope was like, yes, I'm going to figure out how to prevent pregnancy.
And he published it?
I
hope it had to be through publications, right?
It was in 1276. So it has to be, yeah.
I just wanted to make a publication joke.
Oh my God.
What?
I completely missed it.
If he's in publications, you got to have a marketing team. Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
So, these herbs.
Dealing with some very unstable herbs.
They're still used today, but they're pretty toxic. So, don't look this shit up unless you know what you're doing. Yep.
Good.
So these novel ideas were the precursors to douching.
Okay.
So this technique was popularized in the 1830s by a doctor in Massachusetts.
America.
Yeah. He suggested using a syringe filled with an astringent solution of alum infused with white oak or hemlock.
Okay.
Yeah. Green tea or raspberry leaves. And then 20 years later, a second doctor touted the benefits of douching in The Marriage Guide, which it had a whopping 300 reprints in 25 years.
Okay.
Yep. So
it's not a lot, I'm guessing.
No.
Okay.
300 reprints in 25 years?
Oh, I thought you meant 300.
They sold out of them and had to print off more of them.
I thought you meant 300 copies.
Okay. It was so popular, it was flying off the shelf, and they had to reprint it 300 times.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a very well-known technique suggested for married people to not get pregnant.
Yep. At least it was an at-home one. He wasn't commercializing it yet. Somebody did, but...
By the 20th century, fucking Lysol started advertising their products as an effective form of a contraceptive douche.
Like bleach?
Yeah. Like they're disinfectants.
Okay.
So with a sharp downturn in population growth, many American women were convinced that douching must be effective, but in reality it's because most women using douching were rendered infertile, or because condoms weren't readily available, men would just bring diseases home to their wives, who were their marriageable type of women, that they usually contracted from sex workers who were labeled the unmarriageable types of women. And this resulted in an uptick in pelvic inflammatory disease. So STDs were running rampant. Bleach was how people were cleaning out their lady bits.
Yep.
So at some point, you're just going to say, fuck it.
So everyone's infertile and has STDs.
Yeah. And at some point, you're just going to say, why not just cut out vaginal intercourse completely? So initially, Augustine the bishop claimed that masturbation and other alternatives to sexual pleasure was worse than fornication, rape, incest, and adultery because it was not used for recreation, so it was unnatural.
Yep.
All this,
you can't bear the fruits of seed sown in the ground.
Is that how it goes?
No, not at all.
It sounded right.
Right.
You're like, I'm just trying to get real heavy with metaphors, guys.
Seed sown today is a crop tomorrow, or
is that really what that analogy is?
I don't fucking know. Don't ask me.
Everything sucks, man. I thought I was the one with the bad colloquialisms.
Right.
So anyway, if you were trying not to get pregnant, the only option, because you don't want to spill your seed, was obviously abstinence.
Yep.
So to help with family planning and population control, the church required both men and women be abstinent for a minimum of 5 months a year.
Okay.
And which were scheduled.
Nobody's bringing baby gravy to the picnic.
And it's all happening at once because it's all scheduled.
Okay.
There was no sex allowed during the 40 days of Lent. No sex allowed for 20 days of Advent or 20 days of Pentecost.
Okay.
All feast days, every Sunday, and then 3 days before and after communion. And all of this added up to 5 months out of the year.
Okay.
So everybody was just pent up and angry all at the same time.
Huh. Okay. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's a lot of calendar work. You just cross off the days on the calendar. How do you keep track of that shit?
You look mortified.
It's just a lot of numbers.
And you're a numbers guy.
I'm a lot of things guy, and that would be problematic.
Yeah. Yes. This might be like one of the most upsetting episodes to you because you're like, all this sounds horrible and it's my favorite thing.
You thought you were triggered during the bonus episode where we talked about like Native American history. No.
Don't worry. We'll get to the Native American history too.
Great. I was really hoping. Anyway, keep going on with your weird douches.
So it was also common to instill abstinence after a woman's first period. So I naturally had a visceral reaction to this because I was like, what do you mean you weren't abstinent until after their first period?
Yeah.
What were you doing before?
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
What? The average age in the medieval time was 20 for the start of your period.
Really?
Yeah.
And you were dead by like 36, so that's a pretty small window.
Yeah, no wonder they were just pumping those babies out.
Right?
No wonder they wanted to get married by 13.
Well, yeah, and pretty much if it's till 20, you got free contraceptive for that first, there's a window there.
Yeah.
Where it's like not squeamish and you're not having periods. You got to really take advantage of that.
Yep. Well, and like, come on now. Like, could you imagine being 18 years old and not have to worry about getting pregnant?
Well, I'm guessing most.
And it'd be socially acceptable to like be allowed to have sex before you have your
but back
period?
then, I'm sure it wasn't like now it's 18 is kind of the hard line. Like,
but I mean like nowadays.
Yeah, but back then, I'm sure it was.
There's absolutely not.
There was
they
a
married
horrible
people off
gray
at 13.
area.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But nowadays.
I actually would have thought it was sooner, not later.
Well, because, yeah, I suppose.
But there's hormones in like everything we eat now, so.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, that was my next bit about how it's obviously getting sooner and sooner, and they attribute that to better diet and like medication and things like that, and more nutrients, so your body gets what it needs to become fruitful younger.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I had to make sure me messing with this cord wasn't being. Yeah, it's the headphone cord, and I've just been fidgeting with it. I'm like, I really hope this isn't picked up on audio, so I had to check that real quick. Anyway, go about your story. I'm going to put my hands under the table.
So, Anyway, since you can't actually stop people from having sex, no matter how much you threaten them with like the pits of hell, people would engage in what was called outer course, which is the inspiration for the Kama Sutra.
Okay.
Which was developed over 2,000 years ago in India, and it was first written down in 400 BCE. But then white people got a hold of it in the 1880s, and it became super popular in the UK. And then Americans finally got their little dirty paws on it in the 1960s.
Okay, well that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's yes, a lot of this stuff kind of culminates Beatles. To a point. Yes, that's how it got over here.
Yeah, right.
So, if you couldn't refrain,
that's part of the British invasion, you know,
the Kama Sutra.
Yeah, they brought it over with them.
Seems fitting. They did steal a lot of shit from India.
No, definitely there was some crossing over events. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you couldn't refrain from having sex, outer course wasn't good, abstinence wasn't good, you could try putting off or tracking your fertility.
Okay.
So this is where it gets really interesting. So breastfeeding was an ancient tool used to postpone fertility in the hopes that it could put off ovulation until the mother was finished feeding. So sometimes it was used they would extend the breastfeeding to ensure longer times between pregnancies.
Oh, you don't ovulate when you're breastfeeding?
You ovulate when you're breastfeeding.
I was going to say, I just had never heard that could have been true, and I was like,
it's kind of like a 1 in 200 chance or whatever. It's better than 1 or 200.
Okay,
but it's like you get like
your hormones are prioritized for one thing opposed to the other.
Yep, and you have a severely reduced. When you had when you had nothing going on, if this was like your best way to do it. Yeah. You know, you take anything that had any type of chance to stop it.
Yep.
So anyway, African and Native American women had already developed an understanding of fertility cycles as far back as the 17th and 18th centuries by tracking their cervical mucus.
Okay.
But white people thought they were all unintelligent savages.
Yep.
But they were tracking babies more successfully than any white person.
Yeah, clearly. They had like population control was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just because they don't speak English doesn't make them stupid.
No, they've had a bit of a head start.
Yeah. So it wasn't until the 19th. I told you we'd get to the Native Americans and I'd be angry about it.
Yep.
So it wasn't until the 1960s before white people caught up with like scientific evidence proving mucus tracking was better than calendar tracking. So like it didn't become popular here until 1960. I guess the Catholics probably tracked it too, but like it wasn't like a big cultural thing.
The Catholics still track mucus cycles.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I mean. They probably were centuries ahead of the game, but it didn't gain popularity until 1960s.
Okay.
So, some fun side facts, just separate from this.
All right. Side facts on our side facts.
Yes. This is specifically regarding the anatomy, since I figured we were using fertility tracking. Sperm was first identified in 1678, but it wasn't until the late 1700s until scientists discovered what it did.
Well, he does that, and then she has a baby.
No, just wait.
Okay.
Eggs in mammals, like us, anything, weren't discovered until 1827.
What?
Which is 40 years after the Constitution was written.
Okay.
And so the timing of... And now...
Sorry, I'm processing things again.
The timing of ovulation wasn't timed until the 1930s. So they didn't even know when a sperm fertilized an egg in the in the process of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. This was over 140 years after the Constitution was written. And then the fertilization of the human egg wasn't scientifically demonstrated for the first time until 1995.
Wow.
It just...
You'd think that would be a higher priority science.
You
know?
Especially because they're... I've been screaming inside for 3 days. Especially when the entire fucking reason why all of these people are overturning Roe v. Wade is based on life starting at fertilization, and we didn't even know when the fuck fertilization happened until 1995.
Yeah.
Which is 22 years after Roe v. Wade. For those of you keeping track at home.
Yep.
I'm fine.
Are you?
Nope.
You seem sweaty.
Yes. So if you suck at avoiding fertility, you can try a permanent method.
Okay.
Like a vasectomy.
Yep.
Which sterilization has been forced on so many people and cultures, like black people and Jewish people and Native Americans, usually by means of castration. And then it was later justified to like people that had disabilities and things. It was justified to prevent men from passing down genetic diseases. So they used to do forced vasectomies.
Okay.
So we need to be more gentle about telling men, maybe you guys should get vasectomies because we, can't, we don't want to have babies.
Uh-huh.
Be nice. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox a little bit.
I was going to say, you got 1 foot off. You're ready. You're ready.
And then... So anyway, I didn't mean for this to turn super soapboxy, but I was already 2/3 of the way through researching it, and I was like, "Oh my god, internal rage machine."
That's fine.
So, just yelling into the void. So,
we're not a void. We're just a tiny ass podcast.
So, vasectomies were typically performed by way of removing the testicles, and then in most cases, in more extreme cases, the entire peen was removed. So
it's an effective form of contraception, I will admit.
Yep. And you're not going to catch any STIs.
You might. I mean, you'll catch...
I suppose you could still catch... You can get some of that stuff in your throat and your mouth.
Well, you're going to catch a staph infection probably if they cut off all your junk and there's no way to clean it.
Mm-mm. So the first modern day vasectomy was performed in 1894.
All right.
But it was up until the 1970s. Men could only get vasectomies if they were 35 or older and already had 3 children.
Oh, so kind of like the way women's are still.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're a woman, there's always the option of getting a tubal ligation.
Yep.
Which is getting slightly easier to get done. So the first successful tubal ligation was performed in 1880.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this is during a C-section of a high-risk pregnancy to save a woman's life in the future by preventing further high-risk pregnancies.
All right.
This was also one of the first instances of a doctor being involved in openly aiding in the reproductive choice of a woman. It was usually not something that was talked about if a doctor did help with fertility issues.
Okay.
And then the rule of 120 was instated.
I don't... Okay.
So it's 120, the rule of 120.
Okay.
Generally, a woman could not receive a tubal ligation unless her age multiplied by her number of children, not pregnancies, children that she has.
Okay.
So at 20, she needed to have 6 kids.
Jesus.
At 30, she needed to have 4.
Okay.
Yep. So
I'm good with math.
Yep.
I got you.
Yep. So, and so on and so on. So by that rule, my ass wouldn't have been allowed to have a tubal ligation until I was dead. This rule was followed until the 1960s.
Okay.
So if you can't do a permanent solution, you can always manipulate the hormones. So if you still can. So the story of Persephone was thought to be a parable regarding reproductive control. So she consumed pomegranates to stop a potential pregnancy, which resulted in yearly Grecian festivals where it was thought women would trade recipes to manipulate their own hormones to prevent ovulation.
Okay.
So like plan B, the pill type situations. So these included pomegranate, pennyroyal, pine, and a plant known as a chaste tree.
Okay. I still don't know what pennyroyal is, but all right.
It's also a flower.
I figured.
It was also called a vitex. So pennyroyal is super toxic, just so you know.
Terrific.
So in the 17th century BCE, trade developed out of North Africa for a plant called silphium. By the 4th century CE, the flowering plant became extinct from over harvesting.
All right.
So many people wanted it.
Yeah, it's just they wiped it off the planet, essentially. Okay.
So Sri Lankan and Indian women would eat papaya to prevent pregnancy because it turns out that papain interacts with progesterone.
Okay.
And they found this out in the 60s. Somebody was like, well, we should see why this is so effective. So it's like legit, and people were figuring this out centuries ago.
Oh.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So by the 15th century, the trade of contraceptive recipes and knowledge nearly died out in Europe, thanks to the church.
Yeah. Hurrah.
Yep. So women feared of being accused of witchcraft and hearsay. Both were punishable by death or torture. So they just stopped trading.
Nope.
Not allowed. You gonna make it?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I was just listening, just taking it all in.
Okay. So,
I just had like flashbacks to the Hunchback of Notre Dame when like the one chick's getting like chased. Oh, doesn't she get accused of being like a witch or something?
Yes, she's a gypsy.
A gypsy, yeah.
So they're trying to like find her, and she has like a little goat that she has on her shoulder with a little cape and stuff. She goes takes sanctuary. It's a great movie. Underrated.
It is. I mean, people don't talk about it enough.
So white women in the Americas, when they moved here, since it was dying out in England, they had to rely on underground information provided to them by Native American or enslaved women who used this information to prevent pregnancies to stop their babies from being sold into slavery.
That's a good motivation.
Yep. I love it here.
Yep. Unfortunate motivation. Don't take me wrong, but good reasoning.
So then in the 1950s, a feminist named Margaret Sanger and her husband paired up with a wealthy heir, and one of the first female graduates from MIT, her name was Catherine McCormick, they brought us the pill.
Not any relation to the spices?
Nope.
Not Maybe. That you know of?
No.
Okay. Maybe.
Oh, no.
No.
I saw in the articles that I was reading where it said what she was an heir of, and I should have wrote it down.
I mean, so I just went to Chicago last week, and we were at McCormick Place, and I looked around. I didn't see anything McCormicky related at the convention center we were at. So
it might be a different family.
It could be this family.
Okay, hold on.
Anyway.
Now,
no.
I need to pull up my research and search it.
Nope, we're not. No.
We're going to figure it out.
You can figure it out in post. I won't put it back in.
Okay.
Just do your own research, people. Google things besides cheesecake recipes.
So, and then in 1965, Griswold versus Connecticut brought us federal protection from states that think that it's okay to restrict reproductive access by restricting the availability of birth control.
Yeah, fuck you, Clark Griswold.
So finally, this brings us to the barrier method, which brings us full circle back to the condom.
Okay, yep.
So what started this all in the first place? The evolution of the condom. First from animal bladder personally shaped and molded to fit the individual member to how we know and love condoms
Can you imagine?
Today.
I hope they have a bunch of molds hanging on the wall like a mug club at a brewery.
Which one's closest to your dick, sir?
They're like, oh, Tony needs 7 for next month. Let me go grab his penis mold off the wall and blow him up 7 condoms for him to take home.
Like a mug club?
Yeah, it's got his name written on the bottom, and it's just a mold of his erect penis. He has to stick it in clay, and then they pour. Yeah,
that's exactly what's happened.
All right, stick your dick in the mold clay, but you do the reservation method.
Yeah, don't you be.
If we hear that clay making noises, we're coming back in here.
So the initial function of a condom was not for pregnancy prevention, but for disease prevention.
Yep.
Mostly syphilis.
Okay.
So after technology advanced from animal bladders and intestines, and then these bladders and intestines were typically lubricated with saliva, they then returned to linen sheaths held into the penis by a ribbon. They became popular in Europe.
A lovely ribbon.
It's a nice little pantaloon edition.
Look, my condom ribbon today matches my underwear. I prepared.
Oh, how fancy.
Yeah.
So in China, silk paper was fashioned into a condom and lubricated with oil.
Okay.
And then the Japanese fashioned the kabuto gata out of tortoiseshell or leather.
I was going to say origami condoms.
No, this was little hard shells. Yeah. So this was a bonus because it helped men that had erectile dysfunction too.
Oh, so yeah, they're just using the turtle shell. Yeah.
Yeah, just as a cap essentially.
Yeah, a sheath.
Mm-hmm. So by the 18th century, lye was used to help shape and smooth condoms, and were finally starting to gain some traction. Especially with the uptick in men seeking company from sex workers. So this increase in demand created a need for a cheaper and more efficiently made product. So in came Charles Goodyear.
The tire guy.
The tire guy.
I've never heard of a latex tire, so I'm waiting to see the...
So he invented the rubber vulcanization process during the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
So this is the process of heating rubber and sulfur together to form malleable rubber with high elasticity, so it was easy to shape.
I like how it's called vulcanization.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking out of like Star Trek.
So they were originally made to size and were reusable.
Okay.
Again, with the molds. Gotta go get Tony's dick off the wall.
There's definitely, a size chart.
So just like the shoes, when you go get new shoes, they got a little mat there where it's like, this is a size 1,
they just
this is a size 2. So they just line your dick up on it.
Yeah, they just use the shoe and they just take that back collar off so you can set the balls right there.
Yeah.
And then, measure from there.
So by 1860...
I'm a grower, I promise. It's cold in here. I'm nervous.
So by 1860, they were being produced en masse. But by 1865, by the end of the Civil War, STIs were running rampant in the working class. Not like it really matters. In 1873, the Comstock laws were introduced, which prohibited sending condoms through the mail or any public advertising of any type of contraceptive. So they were starting to get popular.
What did Comstock have against condoms?
I don't know.
Okay.
Some real personal vendettas that I
guess,
are unsettled in this story.
Comstock with the cock block. Anyway, sorry.
So by World War I, Germany realized that syphilis and gonorrhea was a problem for their soldiers, so condoms were handed out alongside ammunition.
Okay, effective.
Yep.
I like it.
By WW2, American and British soldiers were finally supplied with condoms to wrap up their willies so that they would stop dying from STIs.
Hand them out cigarettes.
Because yes.
Okay.
Well, they didn't. The German army was the only army that had condoms. Everybody else was like, fuck it. They're not supposed to be going out and sleeping with people anyway.
Yeah.
And so they didn't give out condoms to Americans and British, and it almost cost them like the war because so many people were sick from sex workers.
Yeah, they're just itching their dick. They can't shoot a gun at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and also like syphilis will drive you crazy and like go to your brain. Yeah.
Yep.
So
gonorrhea.
So then a German scientist figured out a way to remove the lines in condoms, making them more comfortable. And so U.S. and British soldiers were less whiny about it too.
Okay.
And then they became even more popular because they were more comfortable. And then latex was invented in 1920, which
also revolutionized.
Yes, revolutionized the condom, and it really ramped up the popularity.
Yep.
And they also started testing the tensile strength. So the latex condom can be stretched up to 8 times before it fails.
Okay.
They're only single use though, so in case you get really bored, trying to make balloon animals.
Yeah, stretched up to
Yep, before they are no longer like viable. Now condoms can be produced at a rate of 3,000 per hour and are lubricated with modern day spermicides, not made out of condom, like they're little sodium carbonate and crocodile,
and pomegranate,
and honey and aluminum and lead
and whatever. Yeah. Elephant shit.
So that's a very brief history of contraceptive.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, you should have seen how many pages of research I had.
This was pretty thorough, I feel like.
Yeah. I don't know doctors' names and stuff. It gets way more detailed. So, P.S. If you use Wikipedia for the history of condoms, it has a warning label at the top informing you that this information below is, quote, the examples and perspectives in this article deal primarily with Western culture and do not represent a worldwide view of the subject. You may improve this article and discuss the issue in the talk page or create a new article as appropriate.
Okay.
And then if that message makes you butthurt, you can click on a link that says, learn how and when to remove this template message, it will then take you to a page where it's like, if you don't like what this page says, then you try to find the proof and edit it.
Yeah.
Good luck, bro. So I thought that was really good on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Like letting people know this is a nice way to say, how do you professionally say this is whitewashed information?
Yeah.
So I didn't use Wikipedia this time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Only in your... No.
Only in your world history? So I used the National Institute of Health.gov.
Okay.
An article, a study, like it was long. The study of the condom by Fod McCarter, Ian.
Nailed it.
Yep. Ian and Shishati. I'm not even going to try to pronounce any of their last names.
Okay.
And then I use PlannedParenthood.org, a history of birth control methods, and then GoEurope.about.com article, condom capers, condom cathedral, castles, and caves.
Wow.
Yep.
Capers?
Like thieves.
Oh.
Yep.
I was thinking like the little salty things. Also called capers.
Yeah. Hand in hand. Sperm, capers. I could see why you could get those confused. They're both little salty things.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was a wormhole. This is what happens when you have ADHD. It just
cycles.
Going. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very different than we normally do.
Yes.
It's very informative.
And no, everyone's going to hate it because all my favorite episodes are the ones about polio and TB and all this fun stuff, and then no one listens.
Now, people listen.
Not as many people listen.
Our most popular...
No one else thinks science is this
People
cool.
like the local murders. That seems to really be popular.
Yeah, maybe I'll do one local murder next.
No, we'll just tell them, go listen to Patreon. First one I did was a local murder.
Hashtag shameless plugging.
Hashtag contraceptive plugging. Just kidding. Our dog's snoring.
We learned about those.
We apparently have bored the shit out of the dog. Do you hear her down here? You out of there? She's getting it. She's like shaking and snoring.
We didn't bore her.
No. Yeah.
We may have done the opposite.
Right? There's a lot of talk. Hopefully everybody, you go out and practice whatever you do.
Coitus reservatus?
Yep.
Coitus reservatus.
No, coitus palautus or whatever it was called. What was it called? I don't know.
Coitus separate, whatever. Doesn't matter. Literally.
Shoot your shot.
Or don't.
Or don't.
Makes you happy.
Yeah. Whatever you choose. Anywho, thanks for listening.
If you've made it this far.
Congrats. I was just going to reservatus myself there, but all right. Thanks for listening.
Mad pullout game.
Someone will die next time. Don't you worry.
Yep.
All right. Okay, bye.
Bye. Oof, that was terrible. Thanks for listening to our terrible podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at TMSTPod.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at Tell Me Something Terrible.